Well, welcome to our first event of the year, the MWPAC Endorsement Night. My name is Laurel Druk. I'm the president of MWPAC this year. If you're new to Marin Women's Political Action Committee, we work to increase women's political participation and identify, recruit, train, and support pro-choice candidates for election and appointment to public office. I'd like to also recognize our amazing board this year. Myself, the president, Miranda Miller, our vice president, Susanna Mrazek, our secretary, Tamara Hall, our treasurer, and Catherine Hilliard, you saw her in the check-in table. She's our immediate past president. And then we have a membership, our co-chairs, Catherine Way and Rachel Kurtz. Our communications co-chairs, Susanna Mrazek and Julia Reinhardt. Our events and programming committee, Barbara Matas and Christina Waldeck. Our endorsement co-chairs, Michelle Barney and Caroline Vance Brewster. A new committee this year, development, Catherine Hilliard and Jean Friedel. Our finance chair, Tamara Hull. Legislative chair, Carol Mills. Our local elections and appointments chair, Greg Brockbank. And our historian, Gina Brewer. I also wanted to welcome you all to register for our upcoming Elected Women's Luncheon, which will be on International Women's Day, March 8th. At McGinnis Park Restaurant. We also have a slew of other events throughout the year, candidate trainings and fun social gatherings, so we hope you can participate. We'd also like to recognize our major champion sponsors who are at the $500 level, Jed Smith, Tamara Hall, and Dennis Rodoni. And it's easy to sign up to be a member. You just go to mwpac.wildapricot.org, or you can sign up with a QR code at the front desk. And without further ado, I'll pass it on to Michelle Barney, our co-chair of the Endorsements Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Good evening and welcome to our Candidates Forum. I'm Michelle Barney, one of the co-chairs of the Endorsement Committee. I would like to introduce the members of our Endorsement Committee and the tonight's volunteers who helped put this evening together and who have joined us tonight, which will include most of the people we've already discussed. First of all, my co-chair is Caroline Vance Brewster. Laurel Druk, president, is also on our committee. Gina Brewer, Vicki Nichols, Catherine Hilliard, Greg Brockbank, Tamara Hull, Miranda Miller, Dottie Lemieux, Christina Waldeck, Carol Mills, and our panelists tonight are Rachel Kurtz, Susanna Mrazek, and Ida Green. Thanks to all of you for contributing your time to this event. It's greatly appreciated. I want to welcome our candidates who will be participating in tonight's event and thank them for joining us. We will be hearing from candidates for the following races: Larkspur City Council, Rosstown Council, Marin County Supervisor Districts 2 and 4. This is one of the smaller races that we'll have this year. November will be pretty much crazy. So we'll be calling the candidates from each race to the council dais according to the agenda that we passed out tonight. So if you don't have a copy of the agenda, there's still one you can get one at the front desk. Our format for the evening will be one in which each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, followed by questions from the audience. They'll be passed to our endorsement committee interviewers panel, and we also have some questions that we can ask as well. But we do encourage the audience to answer questions if you have any specific ones. You may ask questions by filling out one of the cards that are being handed out on each side of the room by Greg Brockbank and Julia Reinhardt. They're in the back. So just raise your hand, and they'll come give you a card. If you need a pencil, we do have them. Our interviewers try to address as many questions as possible within the time allotment that we have. Please make certain that your questions can be addressed to all candidates. We don't just target one candidate. They must be asked of all the candidates and pertain to all of them in a particular race. They will then have 1 minute each to answer each question from the committee. Miranda Miller over here will be our timekeeper. Keep the show flowing well tonight. So candidates, please watch Miranda's cards to make certain that you're staying within the time limits. At the end of the forum, MWPAC members will conduct a caucus. This is open to current members only, and any non-members and candidates will be asked to leave at that time, and they're welcome to stay in the lobby until we're finished with the caucus and counting the ballots, if you like. Members may vote at any time. You will be voting to recommend male candidates and endorse female candidates. If you do not want your vote counted in a particular race, please choose abstain on your ballot. It won't be counted. If you would like to vote for no endorsement, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you don't like any of them, so that'll be counted. Highly recommend that MWPAC members hear all the candidates speak in each of the races in which you'll be voting, so that you can give all of them your fullest consideration. Ballots will be collected by either the people handing out the question cards or by Catherine Hilliard, who near the end of the meeting will have the ballot box at the back. Again, thank you, candidates, members, and guests for joining us this evening. And for candidates, one thing that you have to remember is on the little stems of the microphones, do not touch them. So you can just press the green button. They pick up the sound very, very well, but the stems are very delicate, so we ask people not to touch those, so that's a little reminder. Anyway, thank you very much. And so I'd like to call up the candidates for the first race on the agenda, and those are the Larkspur City Council members, Stephanie Andre, Claire Paquette, and Lana Scott. You're welcome to sit in any of them. There's water if you like. Just push the little button and it'll turn the microphone on. So the way we do this is the panelist will ask the questions, and we'll start from my left to your right, and the first person will be for the first question will be the person on the far left, and then we'll the next person will be, first person will be the middle person, we'll just go like that. So, okay? So I want to begin, and if you have any questions for Larkspur City Council, please raise your hand and have Greg or Julia hand you a card. Thank you. Lana, would you like to start with the opening statement?
Good evening. I'm Lana Scott. I've lived in Marin for 16 years as a tenant and chose to run for the open position on the Larkspur City Council because of the important issues currently before the council, specifically the rent ordinance, affordable housing, and of course, flood control and wildfire risk. I have a Master of Education with a focus on guidance and counseling. As a certified disability management specialist, I assisted the disabled and injured workers return to suitable, gainful employment within their physical abilities. This involved working with people from a variety of socioeconomic backgrounds to reach a common goal, a return to work. I was self-employed for 21 years as a vocational consultant and then worked for 2 national corporations. The first was Gen X, a disability management firm, as a vocational case manager, and the second was Intracore Waste Management as an occupational health counselor. My interests include group walks, pickleball, trivia, playing with AI, and learning new skills. I hope to bring to the council my experience in consensus building so that we may achieve a common goal. On the council, there are goals to meet, policies to implement, and programs to oversee. I hope to be part of that process. I would greatly appreciate your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Stephanie?
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Andre.
Go ahead and press your, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Andre. I'm here to explain why I'm the best candidate for Larkspur City Council. As a young child, my family immigrated to the United States in pursuit of better opportunities. When we moved here, I spoke Mandarin and Taiwanese, but I quickly learned English and thrived in school. I graduated at the top of my high school class and earned degrees from two of the finest universities in the country, Columbia University and UC Berkeley. I have had a successful career in finance, and I've raised two sons through the Larkspur public school system. My story is proof that the American dream endures. While I have been fortunate to live the American dream, I feel the responsibility to keep it open and accessible for others. I am running for Larkspur City Council to contribute to the building of a more equitable, sustainable, and diverse community. I bring decades of experience in financial management. An existing council member has mentioned that my deep understanding of financial analysis will be additive to the skill set of the existing council members. As a former executive of a public company, I understand the importance of accountability, and I was held to account every quarter by our board, shareholders, employees, and customers. My track record of building consensus and delivering results will benefit Larkspur's residents. As former president of a nonprofit foundation, I have upheld the duties of a fiduciary. I volunteer at my children's schools, my church, the food bank, and my neighborhood emergency response group. I care deeply about this community, and I bring the necessary skills to make well-informed decisions for the benefit of Larkspur residents. I hope you will support my candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie? Oh, I'm sorry, Claire. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Claire Paquette, and I'm running for Larkspur City Council. I am a Marin native. I grew up in Greenbrae. It's actually part of the jurisdiction now, so my dad's my voter, so you can't have him. I went to Basage, Kent, and Redwood, and I was a rower, so I grew up on the creek. I represent young families. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 5-year-old, and my husband and I both work full-time. I think that a dynamic council represents the makeup of the community, and a lot of people that move to Larkspur want to take advantage of the great school system and their young families like I am. I've worked in corporate America for the last 15 years, and for the last 10, I've been in operations. I think that the skills are transferable because operations consists of analytics, customer service, so I can speak to a lot of different people that might have different opinions than my own and still synthesize what they're trying to tell me. And then taking all that information and presenting it in an understandable manner. I think a lot of council will be listening to people, representing young families, and making a good decision, even if I'm listening to opinions that might not be my own. I hope that you vote for me, and I'm Claire Paquette. Thanks.
Thank you. Panelists?
Okay. Good evening. This is a 3-part question. What is your stance on the state-mandated housing increase affordability in the proposed building sites? How can the Larkspur City Council advocate for maintaining Larkspur's beautiful historical district in Commerce while complying with the state mandate to build units? Should there be an increase in the percentage of affordable housing to a new housing development? Happy to repeat it if you need me to.
We'll start with Stephanie.
Sure. I think, I think housing affordability is an extremely important issue, and it is an issue that many towns and cities in our county are dealing with right now. So the state mandated housing elements plan requires that Larkspur build a specific number of units over the next 8 years. And the plan is currently going through the Planning Commission, and I attended the Planning Commission meeting in December. I've read through the documentation, looked at the maps, and have heard feedback from residents. I think it is extremely important that we build more housing to attract so that people can can live closer to where they work, and that when people live closer to where they work, they become more invested in their community. I think that's extremely important for Larkspur, and so I think as a Larkspur council member, I would be very supportive of the eventual plan that comes forth to the council on the housing elements, and I would be supportive. And I would be supportive of the plan that ultimately comes to the council for approval.
Thank you. Oh, Claire. We're just alternating, who goes first. So, you're second.
Okay, so I'm very supportive of the housing plan. I believe the number is 875 units that we need to build over the next 8 years. And I think that there's a lot of great ideas of where to put those units. It's funny, I was watching something on Netflix about blue zones, and one of the sites in Singapore they were saying how a really dynamic housing will look like a club sandwich. And it basically has housing and maybe a grocery store and medical center. And so I think there's a lot of really cool ideas of what we could develop. One of the sites is Lucky Supermarket. So, having a grocery store and then housing would make it accessible for people that maybe are retiring out of a larger home that they can't maintain anymore and want to live, in a smaller unit that they wouldn't have to maintain. They could be right downtown. They could be close to a grocery store, just go downstairs and get their groceries. So I think that there's a lot of really great ideas and a lot of opportunity to increase environmental programs in the housing, like make it electric, induction stoves instead of gas, so that we're reducing greenhouse emissions. So, and I really like your point about increasing affordable housing. I think right now the requirement is 20%. I think that it's worth there's a sign that says stop. Oh, sorry. I think that's a really interesting idea, and because housing salary. Sorry, I'm really nervous. Starting salaries for teachers and police people, and the people that serve our community, they would require more affordable housing.
For sure.
Okay, the state mandated 979 units. The council has already identified 17 locations, which is 141% of the mandate. So they're in pretty good shape that way. Regarding the historical district, in 2006, the council passed the specific plan, which deals with zoning and height limits, which limited heights to 2 stories. Since then, the council has amended that, and now they can build taller buildings. The state owns the vacant lot in front of the vacant Lucky's grocery store, and they would like to build affordable housing there. We have yet to see the plans for that, so we don't know if there would be parking involved, no parking, parking underneath. Would they demolish the Lucky's grocery store for parking? Possibly there could be another grocery store with affordable homes on top of it. That's a possibility. So I am definitely for affordable housing development. I think the Larkspur landing area is a good place to start since it's transit oriented.
Panel? Hi, everybody. Thanks for your answer so far. My question is, in what way do you think that the Larkspur City Council has a role in encouraging more equality, diversity, and inclusion in your community?
Start with Claire.
That's a good quality. Okay. Sorry, I'm just saying it out loud. Okay. I think that Larkspur City Larkspur City Council has a role in increasing diversity, quality, and inclusion in Larkspur by, approving the housing plan. I think that will bring more young families that can't currently afford to buy in Larkspur. We can create opportunities for them to move here even, before they have a family, maybe buy a one-bedroom unit and, get teachers into the community, get police people and firefighters into the community so that they are living and working, where they work. Sorry, I'm totally blanking. But also, I think that one thing that City Council can do is, create more community events. San Anselmo has the City Nights where families can come together and get to know each other. A lot of people move to the suburbs from the city and need opportunities to meet each other. So I think creating an environment where we can enhance, foot traffic and increase commerce and get people together would be very valuable.
Lana?
Would you repeat the question?
In what way do you think that the Larkspur City Council can encourage more equality, diversity, and inclusion in your community?
On the council or in Larkspur?
In
As a Larkspur City Council.
How would I do it? By promoting AFFH, and I'm trying, that's affirmatively furthering.
Oh,
Okay, I would do it by promoting AFFH, affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is part of the 1968 Fair Housing Act. It eliminates discrimination in housing, rentals, financing based on national origin, sex, race. And I am definitely for the passage of Measure D, which is the rent ordinance that puts a cap on rent increases. I think that would help seniors to stay in Larkspur and would attract younger people of all persuasions, race. It would just attract younger people in general. Thank you.
Stephanie?
First of all, I think it's very important to have minority and women representation in public office to augment the viewpoints of that are heard when decisions are being made. As if I'm elected to Larkspur City Council, I think I do support building more affordable housing, which I think will increase the diversity in our community. But I would also champion the hiring of minority and women to governmental roles to the extent that the council has influence over that. I would also support working with the Chamber of Commerce to help people start minority-owned businesses. Minorities and women face challenges that other people don't face when they're trying to start a business, and I think we need to work with the Chamber of Commerce and others within our community to help people overcome some of those obstacles. And then lastly, I would support more cultural activities where we are able to showcase the diversity within our community through culture, food, music, and art, similar to what happened in December on the Holiday Magic event on Magnolia. I would support those events.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just having a mini conversation here. It's a follow-up question. Do you support the project near San Quentin? You can determine the order.
Lana, you're first.
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the project near San Quentin. Okay, I'm not familiar with that project.
If I may, as I live near San Quentin, I believe it's an affordable housing project, and it's in between where Larkspur Landing is and then those condo townhouses that are on the side. So there's a whole proposal, and I believe it's been passed by the supervisors. Am I correct? Yes. So it's already been passed. So they're going to be building a two-segment affordable housing project where I believe most of the housing is affordable, very large percentage.
I would be for it because, as I said earlier, I am for building in that area because it is transit-oriented. So I would definitely support it.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yes, I absolutely would support that project as well. And I believe there's also 2 empty parcels that are owned by the Ross Sanitary District that was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting in December. And I would also support building affordable housing there as well.
Yes, I would support the project as well to build affordable housing by San Quentin. It's not a club sandwich, but it's kind of like an open face sandwich because there's the Marin Country Mart there. People can get to work on the ferry. There's the train to Petaluma. So Lana said that already. It's a transit hub. So I think it's a really good location to put affordable housing.
Thank you.
All right, next question. What is your vision for downtown Larkspur and position on outdoor seating options?
Stephanie?
I believe the vision for downtown Larkspur is to the extent that we can, to preserve that small town character and feel of Magnolia Street, and I am absolutely supportive of that. Although we currently do have a vacant Lucky's supermarket that I think many residents would like to see replaced with another grocery store and a pharmacy, and perhaps, if it makes sense, to build low-density housing on top of that. So have some mixed use, commercial and retail there. I think that makes a lot of sense. I am supportive of more outdoor seating. I think that really enhances the character and the vibrancy of our town. And so to the extent that restaurants, restaurant owners want to provide, sidewalk seating, I would be very supportive of that.
Claire?
Hi. So yes, I definitely want to support a vibrant downtown on Magnolia. Last week, I spoke at the DCCM, and if anyone was there, you heard me say that my husband's biggest plan for Larkspur is sidewalk seating. So he's a political guy, but that's his tilt. I know right now there are some businesses that are pulling their sidewalk seating because rightfully the city is charging rent on the sidewalk, which they own the sidewalk. I think that's their right. But if everybody's pulling the sidewalk seating, I think that maybe there's value to relooking that. I think there's a health and safety benefit to having people sit outside, especially in times right now when COVID is peaking. And again, I think supporting downtown could mean more events. Like Stephanie said, like Larkspur Magic, where we shut down the block from like the Peso to Left Bank. I think that was a really amazing event and super successful, and we could support our local businesses.
Lana?
As far as seating downtown,
Your mic, please.
I'm going to keep it on. As far as seating downtown, sitting outside downtown, Ruli's had an issue, but now they do have seating on the sidewalk. So I assume that issue has been resolved with the council because the council wanted to charge them for outdoor sidewalk tables and chairs. Since they're there, either they're paying it or the council waived the fee. But anyway, that's fine. In terms of, I like the way downtown Larkspur looks, and it is on the National Register of Historic Places. In terms of revitalizing the downtown, I would again have the Magic on Magnolia during the holidays, that the Chamber of Commerce put on and was successful. The Lark Theater had suggested having comedy night and music, live music. I think that would be a great idea because the restaurants in that area gain a lot of business whenever there's something going on at the Lark. I think the wine stroll should continue. I think perhaps we could have an art display night like other cities do. I think an article should be written in the AAA magazine if it hasn't been done or if it's been a long time since it's been done. It should be in again, and it's time to stop. Thank you.
We have time. We have, on the agenda it says 7, so we have time for like 1 or 2 more questions. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
All right.
So the question is, what are your thoughts on rent control in your town / jurisdiction?
I believe it's Stephanie, is that right? I don't know, I've lost track. Sorry.
This is a hot issue right now in Larkspur. There will be a measure on the March ballot. I have spoken to many residents about this issue. I've spoken to renters who are anxious about losing their housing. I've spoken to property owners who are in their 70s and 80s and depend on the rental income for their living expenses. And then I've spoken to people who kind of straddle these two groups. They are rental property owners, but their children are renters in Marin. So, you know, this is an issue that is of significant importance, and I think it's best that the voters speak directly on this issue, and I will respect whatever the outcome is of the March election. But secondly, I'd also like to point out that the rent control issue that we are experiencing is an imbalance of supply and demand. That is the root cause of the problem. The high rents are merely a symptom of this problem. And so to solve the problem, we need to build more housing. We need to build more affordable housing. And that I will be focused on working to build more affordable housing to solve this problem for the long term. Thank you.
Claire?
So Larkspur passed a rent control measure where versus the state 10% max rent increase, Larkspur is capped at 5% and interest capping out at 7%. I think that it is strong versus the state. I think that it benefits renters as well as giving landlords enough money that they can invest back in properties. I think the concern would be when landlords stop maintaining the properties that their renters are living in and there become health concerns. So I do support the current 7% cap. I think if it gets repealed, then we'll be back at 10%. I think there's places we can go from here, but I think in March, that's where I lean. Also, I read an article last week where 2/3 of renters in Marin face discrimination against Latinos and families with children. So I think that there are more protections and more we can do for renters, but that is my stance on rent control.
As a tenant, I'm definitely for the rent ordinance. I'm very much for affordable housing, but I can tell you, having lived in San Francisco for years and having seen affordable housing being built, it does not bring down rent. So I think you definitely need a rent ordinance to bring down rent. And I think the state's 10% is definitely too high. Larkspur is heading in the right direction, and I think it could even go lower than a 7% cap, and that's my stand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think this might be the final question. What do you see as your greatest weakness in serving this role, and how will you work to counter it?
Claire?
Okay. I don't know if anyone's ever watched 8 Mile, but there's a point where Eminem raps about his faults before his opponent can. So I think my greatest weakness is definitely how green I am, right? I have a lot of strengths, and I have 2 minutes to answer each or 1 minute to answer each question. I don't think I can shine on every issue. My biggest weakness is I'm new to politics, but I also think that can be my strength. I represent, a lot of the opportunity to grow, young families, parents both working. Like, gone are the 90s when one parent can stay home. People need to work and raise their kids at the same time, and they might face judgment for doing so and running for public office at the same time, but it's possible. When something is important, you make time for it, and that's what I plan to do. So that's my wrap.
Thank you. Lana?
I look forward to building consensus and working toward a common goal. I'm interested in all of the issues going on in Larkspur. They affect me, so I'm quite interested in what's happening. And I feel my strength would be working toward consensus, toward a common goal, and getting things accomplished.
Stephanie?
Yes, similar to the other candidates, I think my weakness is probably that this is the first time I am running for public office, although I do see it also as a huge opportunity for me to learn about the various issues that impact us. I have spent my professional career working with different interest groups with different priorities and trying to balance the different interests and priorities of these groups. I am at a point in my life where my kids are grown or almost grown. I've got one a freshman in college and the other one is a junior in high school. I feel that I have the right level of time and energy to devote to this office, and am willing to roll up my sleeves and educate myself and be the best advocate that I can for Larkspur residents.
Thank you. And now it's time for your closing statement. So if you would like to start, Lana.
Okay. In closing, I understand the difficulty in paying high tolls and gas prices to drive to work, which is why I think transit-oriented affordable housing is important and within Larkspur's climate action plan, as it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. I also think the passage of a rent ordinance on the ballot as Measure D is important to allow seniors to continue living in Larkspur and to attract a younger generation of renters. A rent ordinance will not increase taxes, will not reduce funding for other essential services, and has nothing to do with planned development for affordable housing. The referendum against Measure D is weak. Passage of Measure D is important. I would appreciate your vote and endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I am the best qualified and most experienced candidate for this office. I am a thoughtful and deliberate decision maker. I have extensive leadership experience working with different constituents to find common ground and workable solutions. I will seek to achieve optimal results for Larkspur residents and avoid wasting taxpayer dollars. I will also use my voice to raise awareness of inequalities and hope to create a more inclusive community. I would be honored to earn your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire?
I am running to represent young families where both parents work, and we're trying to create a community where our children can grow and go through the amazing school system. I love Larkspur. As I said, I grew up here. It's changed so dramatically from when I grew up. I was speaking with someone earlier about, the best thing in Bon Air earlier was Chevys, and you watch the tortilla maker circle around and around. Marin Country Mart was nowhere near as dynamic as it is today, and even the downtown of Larkspur, we didn't have Perry's, we didn't have Bochi and Equator. I think Larkspur is moving in such an exciting direction, and I want to be a part of further developing the future for Larkspur. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All I can say is, wow. What a great group of women. This is exactly why our organization exists, is to bring wonderful women like this forward. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda, Ross Town Council, Terry Dowling. Welcome. We'll give Terry a little bit longer to answer questions. I mean, this is going faster than I thought, so it's up to you. Use your judgment. Thank you. Welcome, Terry. Would you like to start with your, once again, don't touch the stem, but you may turn on push the little button, and the microphone will carry your voice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me here today. My education, work experience, skills, and commitment to working on behalf of all Ross residents makes me a very strong candidate for the Ross Town Council. A bit about my background. I grew up in small towns in upstate New York. I hold 2 master's degrees, one in education and one in public health from UC Berkeley. Early in my life, I was a Peace Corps volunteer, training teachers in Ghana, West Africa. I was also a teacher in the Washington, D.C. public school system. For much of my adult life, I worked for the San Francisco Department of Public Health, where I held several management and director positions, including directing community health education, HIV, counseling and testing, and for the last 10 years, managing community planning for emergency preparedness and response. I've lived in beautiful Ross with my husband for 32 years. For the last 12 years, I've been fortunate to represent Ross on the Marin County Commission on Aging, serving for 2 years as the chair. The commission plays an important role in educating and advocating for older adults in Marin County. In 2018, I initiated and currently lead a remarkable and active age-friendly Ross task force. The task force provides opportunities for older adults in Ross to socialize, to reduce isolation, to participate in intergenerational activities, and to remain active in the community. Working on behalf of my community, whether it's where I work or where I live, has always been an important value in my life. I bring to the Ross Town Council my years of experience working for government and working on behalf of the community. I bring a commitment to public safety, emergency management, and public health. I bring to Ross my commitment to represent all residents, young and old, new residents, and those who've lived in Ross for many years, like myself. I will work hard, listen well, and will be a collaborative problem solver. It would be an honor to serve on the Ross Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you. So once again, if anybody has any questions for Ross Valley Town Council, please raise your hand for the question cards. Thank you.
All right, I have the first question. What is your position on the cooperation of the Ross Fire District with the other fire districts that serve surrounding neighborhoods?
My understanding is that we are all working together, and we are going to be in the town of Ross. We're scheduled to close our fire station in 1 year. So we are dependent upon working with our neighbors in Sleepy Hollow, Fairfax, San Anselmo, to work together to make sure that all of us are cared for by our fire department. Thank you.
What efforts would you put in place to ensure that all residents have equal access to participate in decision-making in Ross?
That's good. Ross is a small town. There's 2,400 people that live in that town. 30% of the population, a little bit more, are over the age of 60. About 27% are under the age of 17 or 18. So it's a fairly diverse age population. It's not very diverse ethnically. But there are people who live in the town who actually are not very involved in the town's activities. And I would think that one of the things that we really need to do is to make sure that we include more of the town in the town council meetings. For example, you go to a town council meeting and there are very few people who attend, either online or in person. And making those town council meetings welcoming is important. To include people who live in the community on community committees is important to do, and to reach out and encourage people to participate. Offering people the opportunity to have a say in government is important for all of us, whether it's in Ross or someplace else. So just making sure that the town council is welcoming and works with our other organizations within the town, like the Ross Property Owners Association, the Auxiliary, the Cedars, which is a school, which is a program for adults who have developmental disabilities. All of us working together and making sure that we're inclusive and encourage new membership on the committees and new participation on the people who attend the town council meetings. So, thank you.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
San Anselmo's March ballot has a measure to remove San Anselmo residents from flood control zone 9 when the tax comes up for renewal. What is your opinion on this matter, and how do you think the town of Ross should respond as a downstream participant in the flood mitigation system?
I personally feel a little disappointed because Ross Valley is fairly small, and I would like all of us to be working together. But I understand what I've heard are sort of the arguments about removing them from the Ross Valley's effort around flood control, because there's been an awful lot of money that's been put into flood control, and there's not a lot at this point to show for it. It's been a slow-moving train. So I think one of the things that we absolutely need to do is hear well. I think tomorrow night there's a hearing in Larkspur regarding the town's decision to withdraw. And I think we as Ross, who's just downstream, need to really understand exactly what the issues are. And I think we need to work together with San Anselmo and Fairfax and all of us who are affected in that flood zone. So, I don't know, as someone, I live in Ross and I live in the flood zone. And so in 2005, my neighbors and the town of Ross were flooded. And there were thousands and thousands of dollars that were lost, cars, homes. We absolutely have to do something to mitigate floods. And I think, as someone said, well, flooding will happen. So I think there's a balance between working together to mitigate floods, what we can do, and also think about how in the future we may need to consider not building our houses in the flood area. So.
Okay. Question. What is the current state of Ross Town Housing Element Plan? And what are your thoughts about the plan?
I think we're moving ahead quite well with that plan. We have to build 111 new units. Most of those units will end up being ADUs. But there are 9 brand new housing units that are for workforce housing that are going to be built in a space right next to the city or town hall area. Also, Branson is committed to 10 housing units for workforce housing. We need, there's not a lot of open space where we can build housing, but this is, I think, really exciting that we've got these 9 plus another 10 workforce housing units. And we, like all the towns and cities in Marin, have to make sure that we are able to reach people who are moderate income, low income, and very low income. So that's our commitment. And we are almost at the finishing gate. There's still some negotiation going on with Branson, but we figure that that most likely will take another month and maybe not even less than that, so.
One more question?
Has Ross implemented a fire preparedness plan? What are your ideas about the plan?
Ross does have a fire preparedness plan. I think we are right now, there's an overall disaster preparedness plan that the town needs to redo. It's been a couple of years, so we need to redo it. But in there is a fire annex, like what to do. One of the things that we did this past year was do a trial run for evacuation, which is a big issue. And we've also done trainings on disaster preparedness and evacuation preparedness with our older adults in Ross. Again, we've got 30% of people over the age of 65. So disaster preparedness is really important for people, especially communities where there's a high percentage of older people and people who have disabilities. So there's a real effort to provide that kind of education in town. And as I said, the chief of police did a trial run evacuation. And I think that one of the things that we need to do in the next year or two is evacuation is a big issue. But it's not just Ross that has to deal with the evacuation out of Ross Valley. It's all the towns along Ross Valley that need to really think about how are you going to evacuate? And there needs to be more, they call them tabletop exercises, where you talk through what would you do. You actually bring the towns together and you talk through what would you do. And then you do some actual live exercises where you spend a day or a morning and you do an evacuation and see if it works. So that's trying your plan, exercising your plan. So there's more to be done in terms of education, and it's not it's never ending. So there's neighborhoods that can work together closely to get to know each other, because in truth, in a disaster, it's people who are your neighbors that are going to be there, not the fire, not the police. So that kind of education is important for us to do throughout Ross Valley, and especially in Ross, and people who live up in the hills, and to know who's that elderly person and who is the person who has disabilities that they need to really check in on. When you look at the data for people who die during fires, it's older adults, and it's people who are disabled. So we need to know our neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to end with your opening, your closing
Yes.
statement?
Yes, I would love
Thank
to.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Oh, thank you for organizing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Good
really appreciate
questions.
your comment. Yes, thank you.
I value community, equity, participatory government, fairness, listening, and collaborative problem solving. It would be an honor and a privilege to represent Ross residents on the Ross Town Council. I'm prepared to put in the hard work to address the current issues in Ross, such as flood control, rebuilding the town's offices, police station, and new paramedic facility, implementing the Ross Housing Element Plan, and preparing for wildfires and other emergencies. Those of us living in Ross are fortunate to live in such a wonderful community. We still must work to make life better for all current and for future generations. I respectfully ask for your endorsement. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Terry. Next on the agenda is the candidate for Marin County Supervisor, 4th District, Dennis Rodoni. Just want to let people know that we reached out to all candidates in these races, and we have in our endorsement committee, we asked the candidates to complete questionnaires, and our endorsement committee vets the questionnaires, vets the candidates to make certain that they meet our bottom lines. And even though Dennis does have somebody running against him, unfortunately, that person did not meet our bottom line criteria, did not agree with the values of our organization. So just to let you know, that's why we have just Dennis here. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Well, I'm really happy to be here, and nice to see you all. And thanks to MWPAC for considering recommending me for this election. I've been a big supporter of MWPC, and I will continue to do that. My name is Dennis Verdoni. I've been District 4 Supervisor for 7 years, and just Tuesday I was elected President of the Board of Supervisors. I was born in Santa Fe General, not very far from here, and grew up in Point Reyes Station, attending West Marin Elementary, Tamales High School, and I received a degree in economics and secondary teaching credential from Chico State, that other excellent school. I'm kidding, Stephanie. I taught high school for 3.5 years before transitioning to a project manager job for a local contractor here in San Rafael. In 1982, I became a general contractor and ran my own business for 35 years, mostly in West Marin. I was on the North Marin Water Board for over 20 years, starting in 1995. Have served on LAFCO for over 20 years, both as a special district representative and a Board of Supervisor representative. I'm married. I live in Olema. I have 2 adult daughters and 2 wonderful grandchildren, and I'm really, really proud to be in a position to represent District 4. So thank you for being here tonight.
Julia's collecting questions. If you have any questions for the panel, for Dennis.
We do have one, but
Okay.
we're going to
Okay.
hold on that for just a moment. Good evening, Supervisor.
Hi.
What do you believe are some of the most significant regional issues facing Marin, and what role does Marin have in shaping the future direction?
Sure. For me, it's very clear that the biggest issue facing Marin is housing and lack of supply of housing. For too many years, we've avoided building housing in Marin for a variety of reasons, and now we have state mandates where we have to meet those mandates or try and meet them. And it really is about affordable and workforce housing. We have plenty of market rate housing. We need to build more affordable housing and workforce housing. And I think the way to do that is really to have the government participate in that process by buying down essentially the cost of the building those housing. If we don't do that, the market will never build enough affordable housing because, as you know, it's really, really expensive to build in Marin. First of all, the ground is very expensive and the construction costs are very expensive. So we need to play a role as cities and as counties, and I think the county can step up and play that role. Just this year, we've committed $5 million a year, up to 5 years, for our housing trust fund, which is, we'll do that exact thing, which is buy down the cost of housing so we can keep it affordable with our nonprofit partners.
Thank you for that. Question: what do you consider your greatest accomplishments to date, and what do you seek to accomplish if reelected?
Oh, thank you. Good question. So I think my greatest accomplishments to date has been my outreach to my community. It's really important to me to keep that contact with my residents. And to date, I've had over 150 community meetings over 7 years throughout the District 4, which encompasses at least 11 venues every time we do it because it's such a wide district geographically. The other 2 things I'm really, really proud of that my office was involved in initiating was the reusable foodware ordinance that is now actually law in Marin County, in all cities, I believe. There's step 1, I believe. And then the other thing is the Cleaner California Coast Initiative that we partnered with Sonoma County and Mendocino County to bring that educational program to the coast. Those are kind of big issue things that take a long time to get into place, but those are the ones I'm most proud of. The other thing I think I'm most proud of is we're nearing the end of the debacle in San Geronimo Valley, and I say that because I think the county could have handled it better, and I could have handled it better, but we're getting to the end of that, and very soon we're gonna hopefully have a new fire station out there in San Geronimo Valley that will serve the whole county. So I think those are the achievements, and if I have enough time, I'll go into some of my goals for this year. It really is about making sure that my role as president, the county has a very efficient board meetings and transparent board meetings, and making sure that the transitions going on at the county with the HHS director and the county executive go smoothly. I think it's really important that myself and Katie Rice, the senior board members who I see in the back of the room here, take a role to make sure this is a seamless transition so there's no bumps for the county. And that's really my priorities this year.
A question from the audience. How do you see the Board of Supervisors' relationship with the different city councils, and how can it be improved?
So first of all, I would always say that relationships can always be improved. I do believe that because we have really, really good board members who reach out to their communities, we have a good relationship with all our city councils. Not everything goes smoothly. I was on the phone this morning with Mayor Kate talking about some issues in San Rafael, and I really appreciated that conversation, because unless we as board members know what the issues are, it's really hard for us to address them. And so I think that's part of what goes on at the county is we depend on each other to have good outreach to our communities, and then we depend on the board as a whole to make good decisions to help our communities. And so, but those relationships, everyone is so important. And you said cities, but that's special districts, water districts, sewer districts. It's the whole system that needs to work best, as best as it can. And it'll work better if the county's involved.
Okay, thank you.
Question. How have you used the office to further rights for women and women in leadership positions?
Thank you for the question. It's certainly an appropriate question for this group. I use my office to make sure that every time I have an opportunity for an appointment, every time I hire someone, every time the county hires someone, that we look at it from an equity lens. And in doing that, I believe we make good decisions, because our commissions, our county, our offices need to look like our community for it to be successful. And so I've had that priority as number one from day one, to make sure I do that, to make sure I get reminded of that every decision we made. And I think the county as a whole and the board as a whole, whenever they're making decisions, even on policies, they need to consider what's best for the community from an equity perspective. And I think we do that really well. For a long time, we've done a good job about talking about equity at the county. And just this last year, we really started putting things to work with participatory budgeting going on, with internal work going on. And we're really making it part of the daily business at the county. And that's really what it takes. It's putting feet on the ground and making it happen.
Okay, I think this is the last question. Where do you see the county's role in addressing homelessness and preventing homelessness? And what do you see working today, and where are there opportunities for improvement?
Thank you. So as far as preventing homelessness, I think the main role the county can play, and it's a priority of our Board of Supervisors, is preventing loss of affordable housing. Every unit we lose, we can never replace. And when we do replace it, it's really, really expensive. So the least costly way you can prevent homelessness is to keep affordable housing available and in your community, first and foremost. When someone hits the street and is homeless, it's much more expensive to deal with, much more costly, and there's so many delays in getting a person to agree to come off the street and go into housing, and it takes so many resources to do that, it just doesn't make sense. The county's role in homelessness is so important, because we bring the social services, the mental health, and other programs to whoever's homeless in whatever cities they are in. And it's really important that the cities and the county cooperate. As you know, encampments are the responsibility of where they're at. So if they're in the city, they're that city's responsibility. But the county has such a key role in bringing the services to that community to help them make a difference. I'm really, really proud of the 705 or 7, I think today is the number of homeless people that we've housed in the Whole Person Care and Housing First program. Been really successful, and that's a program where 94% of them are still in the program, some 2 or 3 years later, and that's really the success of it. By wrapping around services and giving people a roof over their head is really, really successful. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes several weeks, even months, to talk someone to come off the street and accept that program. But we've done it over 700 times. Unfortunately, we probably have 700 more times we need to do it to even make a break in what's going on. But we're continuing to work on that. I'm not against a safe parking sort of site, but it's really, really difficult to figure out where to put that. And really, it's only an interim step because people still need to have good services and still need to have a roof over their head eventually. Really, really challenging, the homeless situation in California. It's as popular for homeless people to be here as we want to be here too, all of us. And that's part of what we need to deal with as electeds. So.
Thank you. Would you like to give us your closing statement?
Sure. So since my election in 2016, I focused on the environment, emergency preparedness, and community housing. I've listened to my constituents, and if re-elected, I'll continue to hold office hours throughout the district to ensure all my constituents are heard. Our work is continuing with my fellow supervisors to create an emergency preparedness plan with better emergency communication, effective emergency planning, efficient notification, and improved neighborhood preparedness. Workforce housing is a serious concern. The inaction of the new countywide rental protections, easing the permit process, especially for accessory dwelling units, and protection of existing affordable housing continue to be priorities. I led the successful effort with many others establishing the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, funding wildfire mitigation work, vegetation management, home hardening, and making sure we're prepared for the next major fire threat. Defending Marin County's environment, including its rich agricultural lands, is a priority. I continue to support affordable preschool, child care, older adult programs, and our immigrant residents. I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club, North Bay Labor Council, Planned Parenthood, Northern California Action, Marin Professional Firefighters 1775, MAPE, SEIU 2015, and the Marin Democrats, and I hope to add your name to the list as being recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, could the candidates for the Marin County Supervisor's 2nd District please join us at the dais? So just as a reminder, there's a little button there that'll turn on your microphone. It'll turn green, and do not touch the stem. Thank you. I don't know everybody. I don't recognize everybody, so if you could introduce yourselves, starting with the gentleman on the left, and give us your opening statement.
Hi, my name is Ryan O'Neill. I grew up here in Marin County in Corte Madera. I have 2 girls that attend Archie Williams, a senior and a freshman. I attended Marin County Public Schools, served as a Fairfax Town Council member, and I'm currently a 2-term Ross Valley School Board trustee. As an Eagle Scout at a Larkspur, I learned early lessons in leadership. I dedicated years to youth development in baseball in West Marin Little League, and I also learned the importance of a strong team. This election marks an opportunity to bring fresh thinking and new leadership to the challenges posed by climate change, state mandates on affordable housing, homelessness, and the social economic fallout from the pandemic. Working together with shared courage, determination, and commitment to our future, We can protect what we love about living here with strategies based on transparency, fiscal responsibility, consensus, and compassion. Our Marin community values are rooted in the beauty of our environment, and I'm driven to preserve this priceless inheritance for our children. I've run a small business for 30 years, most of it here in Santa Fe. I've engaged in public service and volunteered in our community. I know that every problem comes with its pathway to its solution, and I'll make sure that everyone is heard and respected. And then I'll take the lead in tackling the important challenges facing us today. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Gabe Paulson, and first I want to thank the Marin Women's PAC for inviting me here, and I want to thank Heather and Brian and Ryan also for what they've done, thousands of hours of service, I think, and I want to thank Katie Rice as well, who's leaving this seat and has been a great advisor and mentor. I just finished serving my term as Larkspur Mayor, and I'm currently on the City Council. The purpose and the goals of the MWPAC are to organize and educate women to eradicate discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, race or age, and institutional violence and poverty. Tonight I'd like to show you both that I've been deeply committed to these goals over my 25 years of service, and I now have specific plans to further your goals at the county level. I'm a CEO of a software company. I've created 35 jobs. Half of them have gone to women. They've all earned six-figure incomes. I taught physics at the former Mills College, an all-women's college, and I'm very proud that many of my students are now physicians. I believe I have three qualities that make me unique among tonight's candidates. First, I've worked in all key agencies: the housing element, rent control, Flood Zone 9, Marin Wildfire Prevention Agency, Marin Clean Energy, SMART. These experiences have given me partnerships to start consolidations to save our taxpayers money and increase service levels. I also have looked and compared us to other counties. We're the lowest in the 9 Bay Area counties in many areas of pay, and many of our problems begin there. Second quality is I have deep healthcare and mental health experience in those sectors. I volunteered over 20 years at Highland Hospital, San Francisco General Hospital, Napa Mental State Ward, Berkeley Free Clinic. I've had 250 patients that I've cared for, from the heroin addicted to the homeless. I think it's hard to work in an agency where the third of the budget is Health and Human Services and get your information from staff reports or listening to others. It helps to have been in the industry. I look forward to your questions tonight. Thank you.
Great. Hello, my name is Heather McPhail-Schreederin, and I'm running to be your supervisor. Thank you for providing this time for us to get together and for everything you do year-round to increase women's participation in the political process. I grew up in Marin in the 70s. The kids I played with were the children of teachers, firefighters, plumbers, and small business owners. I loved my childhood. Our local community was close-knit, neighbors looked out for each other, and most people lived and worked in the county. Marin is now at an inflection point. I continue to be optimistic that with the right leadership, we can create a healthier and more equitable community. I expect we'll have an opportunity tonight to dig into the issues, but the details of housing, flooding, or transportation are not what inspired me to run for supervisor. Policy and planning are tools we can use, but ultimately, I'm motivated by the love of my community and our people. And I believe our opportunities ahead and the challenges we face require more from county leaders. Housing is a central topic, but our issues actually run deeper. We are not individual neighborhoods, towns, cities, or districts, but a community that relies on one another, traveling a shared path. It is our responsibility to bring everyone forward together. By 2027, more people will be over 60 than under 30 in Marin. Seniors and young families will continue to need support. Our challenge is to create an inclusive, affordable, welcoming, respectful community for all. As president of the Kentfield School Board during the pandemic, I helped lead parents, teachers, administrators, and our greater community during an emotionally charged time. We became a model for reopening safely and quickly while maintaining a balanced budget. I've been successful in several executive positions in both the corporate and public sectors, primarily in business development and strategy. I'm ready to do the work and to fight for a vibrant, inclusive, and forward-thinking future for Marin. I'm honored to have the support of Planned Parenthood, the Marin Association of Public Employees, MAPE, SEIU Local 2015, and 500+ community members. I hope to earn your support as well. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Brian Colbert, and like many of you and your parents, I wasn't born here. I was born in Connecticut, outside of New York City. I have a younger sister. I went to Oberlin College. I grabbed a degree in political science and acting. I grabbed a law degree and a master's in public policy from the University of Chicago. Worked in New York City for 5 years, did some entrepreneurial stuff. My wife, then girlfriend, we lived in Turkey for 3.5 years. I taught at a private university in the political science department, which rekindled my interest in politics. We moved and settled in San Anselmo in 2013. I have been serving on the San Anselmo Council since 2017, 2 terms. 1 term as mayor. And during that time, I've been fully committed to my community. I've been on the Transportation Authority of Marin since 2017. I'm currently the president and have served on Marin Transit since 2020. I would encourage all of you to come to San Anselmo. We are a thriving community, and I've really focused on community vitality. And I'm not talking about businesses. I'm talking about a wider community, not just families, but friends and neighbors. During my time on council, we brought parklets, we closed our streets. We created a common space during COVID when people really needed to gather. I supported Steve Berto in the creation of our DEI community. Right now, I'm focused on 3 priorities, which I think reflect the needs of our communities. Wildfire prevention, the need to provide housing for all members of all economic levels in our community, and infrastructure. I welcome the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight. And the last thing I really think we need to focus on our community is tolerance. There's too much coarseness and unpleasantness, and I would like to see that return to our civic discourse. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Many of us remember the floods of December 2005. The floods caused nearly $95 million in damages in the communities of Fairfax, San Anselmo, Ross, Kenfield, and Larkspur. Question is, from a county perspective, San Anselmo's March ballot has a measure to remove San Anselmo residents from flood control zone 9 tax when the tax comes up for renewal. What is your opinion on this matter, and how do you think Larkspur, as well as other communities, should respond as a downstream participant in flood mitigation systems? So thinking of it from the county perspective, how would you address this?
Start with Gabe.
Thank you. So I'm on the flood zone board, and I've been following both what's going on the ballot, the Building Bridge 2, and all of the projects. I would say the county has started this, and so much has changed since Flood Zone 9 and the project plans were put into place. For one, there's an increasing amount of sea level rise. Secondly, the 100-year storm is now the 30-year storm. I have 30 seconds. I really should have started faster. I think we need a new governance model. I believe the JPA model of the MWPA is one place where we could have a technical committee and an ops committee. I think that there are about 10 options on the table, including catch basins, berms, dredging, and they all need to be reinvestigated. I've done most of the reading of the studies, the Stetson reports, and I think it's really time to redo the plan and obviously get the community input. I would want the public works directors of all the 4 incorporated and the unincorporated to have the input, and once there's a credible plan, to have voter input. So the exit of San Anselmo to me is secondary to the fact that we don't have a master plan to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather?
Yes, and we have 1 minute, is that correct?
Don't touch the stem.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. And it's 1 minute, just to be clear. for the
Yeah,
answers. Okay,
sorry.
perfect.
Yeah.
No, understood. Okay, so first of all, it's a very complicated issue. I think anyone who's been following this would know that. I want to emphasize that, as we all know, flooding is not going to go away in Marin. It's a critical issue. I think it was a very sound motivation to put together this flood zone 9. $95 million of damage is significant. I think where the frustration has come up and why San Anselmo wants out, where there's a movement to get out of it, I shouldn't say all of San Anselmo, is that $50 million has been spent to date. And I think there's a strong feeling that there's not a lot to show for that. And I think that that is the crux of this in terms of, from a process standpoint, and from a transparency standpoint, I think that there's a lot to be made up. And I think what I would suggest from a county perspective is to rethink the way that Flood Zone 9 is organized, and because flooding's not going to go away, but to rethink how it's organized and to have a much stronger community engagement process to bring in these jurisdictions, to bring in the community members, make the meetings available by Zoom, recorded. This is basic level community engagement that can be done, and I believe it can be done with a new process in place.
Thank you. Brian?
Do you mind repeating the question?
Related to the floods of December 2005 caused $95 million in damages. San Anselmo's March ballot has a measure to remove San Anselmo residents from the Flood Control Zone 9 tax when the tax comes up for renewal. What is your opinion on this matter, thinking with a county hat, a supervisor hat, and how do you think Larkspur, or San Anselmo, and other downstream jurisdictions, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So I live in San Anselmo, and let me be clear. Missteps have been made by the county, but that I have voted against leaving the flood zone. It's a symbolic measure, so I'm not sure why you want to go to the voters so they can vote for something and afterwards they realize that they're wasted their time voting. I don't think that's a legitimate thing to do. That said, at this point, I also do not support the renewal of the flood fee. In terms of our downstream neighbors, in response to your question, communication is great, but I think people want solutions. And I think the one thing we have to realize is that the incentives of downstream neighbors may in fact be diametrically opposed to their upstream neighbors. So given that, I'm not sure how much conversation is going to actually do. So I think the Flood Zone 9 actually needs to be reconstructed. If you look at how it was done, it was sort of done not for a multi-jurisdictional area, right? The flood zone was designed to really focus on our downtown communities to remove those hardened areas. So at this point, to be clear, I do not support leaving the flood zone because I think it's purely symbolic. I do not support the renewal of the flood fee, and I think we need simply a brand new conception focused on what are those small actionable items such as raising bridges and focusing on storm drainage in the Ross Valley.
Ryan?
Well, I'm going to disagree with that. First of all, I do not think it's symbolic because when people remove themselves from the floodplain issues, that actually removes them from future liabilities on decisions of monies that have not been spent. So for the $12 million that's going to be collected in the future, I don't necessarily believe that that is symbolic. But did the people really get their money's worth? Absolutely not. And that's okay. I mean, it's a knee-jerk reaction. Everybody wants to do something as opposed to doing nothing. The problem is that it's my step to make solutions that in order to actually make big decisions, it's a three-part process. The first part process is to say to yourselves, what is the problem? The second part is asking yourselves, how did we get here? Well, the problem is we flooded. How do we get here was we built in floodplains. But the most important aspect and what didn't happen here is where are we going? And before you decide where you're going by spending this tax money, you have to backfill the answer to what you're going to do. I think everybody wants a solution, but I don't think there's a solution to flooding. You can't throw a bunch of bulldozers where you need to bring people that will build and ecologists, carpenters and environmentalists to the solution as well. The big waste of money here is $52 million, 72 as of 2022. 72% went to staff and consultants, 14.6 went to land, and 12.7 went to construction. And we bought French Laundry, we bought the Grade A corn, and we built 3 pump houses, and we bought the Sunny Hills Nursery. a hole in the ground to show for it with good intentions is great, but we need to collect the tax with a plan on where the tax goes and not collect the tax with no plan.
Okay, question. Is this going to Heather? Is Heather first?
Who answered first last time?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Heather.
All right, Heather,
It's-
although it's going to all of you. Where do you see the county's role in addressing homelessness and preventing homelessness? What do you see working today, and where are there opportunities for improvement?
Thank you. And I'm going to answer this in 1 minute, come up with a solution. But no, in all seriousness, I appreciated that Dennis was here earlier and talked about what the county is doing. I went to a really interesting talk that Terry and I were on Monday at the Commission on Aging about homelessness. And I agree wholeheartedly with what the director of homelessness at the county said, that homelessness is an issue of housing. It's simply that. And I think that they outlined the whole kind of the matrix of all the things that are being done, but I want to clarify two things that I think were really important. One, I think that the county has done a great job on the permanent supportive housing side of things. Where I don't think the county has done a great job is on the more immediate transient type of housing. And I think that's the area that we do need to address more. And I absolutely believe that the county needs to partner with jurisdictions to support those efforts that are currently happening. I know what Dennis mentioned in terms of where the encampments are, or that's the city that has to take responsibility. I think the county can play a bigger role in that, in helping to support jurisdictions. Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, so as I said before, I come from a city and town background, and I actually think this is an opportunity not only for the county to partner with the cities and towns, but in fact to follow the cities and towns on this, because it's the cities and towns that are dealing with this on the ground. When I canvass in Gerfsel Park, that's what folks want to talk about. Yesterday, I was canvassing in Kentfield, and if you don't believe me, you can check my Facebook feed, and I was walking around, and you got to pounce on them when they're outside of their house. And I said, what do you care about? And she said, I cared about Project Home Key. And she said, I was an MB, and I was scared. And she said, I didn't want the project. She said, but the executing of the county has made me feel good and comfortable. So I think it's one of those things that we have to be able to do. Everybody wants solutions, but let's be honest, when confronted with something like that, you're scared. For Project Home Key, there was always an opportunity for greater engagement, but you have to have solutions. So I think that's the kind of thing that you have to show the political will, and more importantly, the level of execution and accountability that gives folks in the county the confidence to say, this is a problem, and we all have to do our part and share.
Thank you. Ryan?
This is a simple a beginning point about compassion. I mean, at the end of the day, some of the people I went to high school with at Redwood High School are homeless, and I see them, and we were friends. And so we're not that different from these people. So I think it really starts as understanding that they are us, and we need to find a solution for us. And in order to do that, you have to weigh that with the balance of public safety, because when you want to send your kids to go play at the ballpark and there's homeless people sleeping in the dugout, and there's fentanyl scares, and there's needle scares, and there's just general unknown, it puts people off, and they don't know how to deal with it. So compassion, and to understand that those people are our people and us, is number one. Number two, there have been some really great work done around. We have to study what's happened around the United States. There's been some great work done in the South Bay, and there's also been a project in Idaho, where what they did was they built small housing on public land, and I think Rob Epstein at Santa Fe had a similar idea, where you would put these homes, little homes, in a place like the Civic Center and provide the services that they need there. Much like we talk about housing and how important it is when we want to put all the people where the services are, homeless is the same way. We can put these people that live in our community, and we can offer them medical services, and we can actually food services and misdemeanor criminal services, all in the same place. And we can give the people who are in our dugouts places to go. And if they don't want to go, then we have to find other solutions. But at least we can provide them something that is adequate to meet their needs and help our safety.
Okay. Gabe?
Yeah, thank you. It's a really complicated question, but I have 4 answers, and I'm going to answer the 4 things I've done in all areas. First, there's chronic homelessness. There are about 500 to 700 people in the county who will never get a job. There's an index, SVPID, and we need to build housing for them. I supported 1251 South Alicio. I support more housing like that. I think there are some cost-effective ways we need to get the funding. These people absolutely need to be housed. They're mentally ill, or they're drug addicted, or they just won't get off the streets. On the housing side, like what Supervisor Doney said earlier, there's the issue of preventing the problem from happening in the first place. First, there's subsidy, which hasn't been discussed much. I've been looking actively at Section 8, and in Larkspur, we actually worked quite closely to develop the Skylark Fund. And I penciled out that the city of Larkspur has about 200 to 400 people who are at risk of being homeless, and the cost of that problem is about $1 million a year based on the means testing that we did. So we need better Section 8. Secondly, we need more production, ADU, we can talk about that, housing and transit-oriented housing. And lastly, rent control. So the Ordinance 1067 and 1068 that passed were specifically designed, and we spent an entire year to try to make a safety net that would prevent this problem from happening. And I've been hearing from residents now that $1,000 a year they'll save from the 70% might make the difference between them being housed and homeless. Thank you.
Okay. Is it Brian? Is that who's next? We're asking. Great. So that's who's starting. What are some of the most significant regional issues facing Marin, and what role does Marin have in shaping the future direction?
Well, I think so many of the issues that we face today are in fact regional. I mean, international, right? Climate change is one, wildfire prevention, right? Fire knows no border jurisdictions. Sea level rise, I'm sure we all saw the headline in the IAJ that there's $17 billion. I've been personally involved in a number of things at the Transportation Authority of Marin, been really focused on State Route 37. That's a real opportunity to address the housing imbalance along with congestion. And I think when we get State Route 37 right, and by we, I mean, I really want to give a lot of credit to Representative Huffman and Senator McGuire. We're gonna do something with climate change that's going to be foundational in terms of carbon capture and really sort of set the path for the rest of the United States. The 101-580 interchange is also something that we have to deal with that affects all of the other 9 Bay Area counties. So that's some of the things that I've done. I think Marin Transit, which really focuses on the transit dependent here in our county, we're part of the larger web of public transportation throughout the entire 9 Bay Area. And as public transportation is iterating and changing, time to stop. Marin needs to play a key role in that.
Ryan?
Can you repeat the question?
What are some of the most significant regional issues facing Marin, and what role does Marin have in shaping the future?
Okay, not enough time to cover this one, so I'm going to go flyer, flood, homelessness, and traffic. But I'm going to take the traffic first because I don't think we have a traffic problem. I think we have an affordable housing problem. And with 67,000 people during major traffic times in our community are driving through here to get to work, to service this county, I think that's the big problem. And I want to really take a look at this housing issue because it's probably one of the most important. As a young kid, I grew up on Ring Mountain in Corte Madera, and I watched the single houses just keep encroaching, and it made me mad to see all this wild land being taken. And all of us in Marin County, we love our open spaces, and we certainly love the ability for the supervisors before us to save West Marin. So if we love our open space and we love West Marin, we have to rethink where we are going to compromise and where are we going to make room for the firefighters and the policemen and the teachers and the artists and the musicians and the service people that live here and the people who can't afford to live here. Where do we make room? They are us. They are part of us. And the biggest problem is we have to rethink up and height densities instead of building out. We can't afford to just take up giant swaths of land like Terra Linda and build single-family residences. We have to really create the transparent communication to our community to teach us to think about inclusion and where we want to put the people who support our communities.
Gabe?
There we go. Sorry, I lost 3 seconds. Really big question, but I'll try to talk by bullet points. Housing is huge. And what we really need to do there is increase production and protect what we have. I think we've talked about that a lot. Disaster preparedness, I'd like to say there's not just fire prevention, there's a fire suppression problem. So we need the engines to have staffed by 3 people, and I think the consolidation of our 17 agencies is one way to do that. We are losing and having a tough recruitment time with the police and the fire services. Public safety is job number 1. One that we haven't talked about, and I said I think is a unique qualification I have, is aging. That Marin is aging quickly. Only 2% of our HHS budget is going into that. I'd like to increase that. I think there's a lot to look at. There's a lot of dementia coming. Latinos are going to have 4 times the number of aging people. They're not house rich, they're not cash rich. And finally, mental health in general in HHS. The one thing I focused on is teen drug use. I've been talking to the 10 moms who've lost their kids in the last 3 years to overdoses. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you.
Do we have time for an additional question? Oh, Heather.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
worry. Heather.
I know. Don't worry. And I'm not going to say ditto. So it's impossible to answer this in 1 minute. And I'm going to just highlight that, of course, regional issues. We're looking at climate change initiatives, equity, traffic, transparency, and community engagement. But I'm going to swing back around to the number 1 issue that's on my campaign, but also was the number 1 issue identified in the recent Marin survey, which is housing. And the reason I'm going to focus on that one is because I believe that we can't emphasize it enough. And it is so complicated and nuanced. But what I want to focus on are 2 areas that I think are important as a county: our workforce in senior housing. And we've mentioned this before. I've mentioned this when I grew up. It wasn't where most of our workforce is commuting in. Two-thirds of our workforce is commuting in, and that's significant. That hits into our traffic issues as well. On the senior side, I think that is equally as important. This is an aging community, and I think those 2 areas would be the most important. And I'm going to bring up examples because it was brought up earlier. The housing complex that's near San Quentin is Oak Hill, and that is going to be an amazing complex. And I think it's a really, really impressive collaboration and out-of-the-box thinking between the county and the Marin County Office of Education to create this workforce housing. So I applaud that. And that's the kind of collaboration and unique, innovative housing complexes that can be done at a county level. Close with that.
Thank you. If we have one more question, it's going to push our agenda a little bit back. Is that okay with everybody? Just one more question. It is nice to hear. Okay. All right. Thank you.
We actually have 2 more.
30 seconds.
We have 2 more.
Well, if you think they're important to ask, I think,
are.
we have some wiggle room if that's okay with everybody.
Okay. What will you do to continue to support DEIB? And if you don't know the acronym, I'll spell it out for you. In the county, it's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging.
I
think we
believe
start with Ryan.
Ryan is next.
Oh, this is
next
great.
up.
I have really been able to do some work.
Ryan. Sorry. Yes, Ryan. Thank you.
We're going to start. As a school board member, everything we've done over the last 6 years that I've been on here has been a very deep dive and focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And belonging part is a massive and it's an incredible focus point because all people of our community, like I said, in the homeless aspect, in every aspect of everyone in the community needs to feel included. And the belonging word is important because it's our sense of community and it's our sense of place. I learned a lot. I learned a lot because I have 2 teenage daughters in the last few years, but I've also learned an incredible amount of how we look at problems and how we solve things and how we try to live our values. And everything that we do through our school board decision making comes through that lens. And it's an eye-opening experience to do that. But what you really see the work and you really see people come up in your schools and people will tap you on the shoulder at an event and say, hey, when you guys did this, it was really great. And the key is the communication of why it's important, and to teach your community as to why we are doing this and how it benefits us. And as we teach this and people understand it, we begin to live it.
Thank you. Gabe?
Yeah, thanks for the question. On the one side, we just have to deal with overt discrimination and hatred. So we've had the Zoom bombings, and being very clear and outspoken against those sort of behaviors is one part. Flying the pride flags, it's something that I've pushed, every June, is another way. Generally trying to signal inclusion. I think one aspect, besides many of the programs going on, is really focusing on the facts and objectivity and a willingness to look at the facts to bring us together. So for policing, I've really pushed for RIPA, the Racial Identification Profiling Act, and reviewed that with the Marin Central Police Department. For housing, I push a rental registry, really to understand what's going on there so we can see where our affordability levels are falling short. For hiring, I see that we need to see the representation, the numbers, and make sure that all people are being represented at higher levels of authority and income. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather?
Thank you for asking this question. It's a really important one to address in this campaign. I'm going to highlight three areas that I think are really important with relation to my campaign and who I stand for, or how I stand as a person. One, my campaign committee. If you look at my campaign committee, I intentionally picked people that would represent a wide, diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and generations. That was really important to me. And I'm also very much trying to meet with a wide variety of people all across Marin, not just in District 2, to understand the concerns. So that's number one. Two, I support what the county has done in terms of the Office of Equity and using the equity calculator and decision makings. I think all of those are really, really strong practices, and I'd like to see that continue. But where I really want to see this go is I want to see authentic engagement happening. And we mentioned that, I think the IJ ran an article a while ago about the commissions, that there's 58 county commissions and a quarter of the seats are unfilled. I'd like to fill those seats and make sure that we have wide representation across the county that reflects the communities that we serve.
Brian?
I'll approach this first from the personal and then from the policy. The reason why I wear a Hawaiian shirt everywhere is that when I moved to the Bay Area back from Turkey, every time I went to a tech conference, people thought I was security and not an entrepreneur. And then when my wife and I engaged in a real estate transaction here in San Anselmo, our assessment came in low. And I worked with my broker, and we addressed it. And I reached out to the Marin realtors and penned a Marin voice, because I know not everyone has the ability to get redress by working with their broker. As to the policy, I supported the creation of the DEI committee in San Anselmo, and I was appointed along with Steve Berto. And the committee was formed in response to the events of George Floyd. I actively stepped down and allowed Alexis Feynman to step on. I think many of you saw my younger daughter here at the party earlier, and she embodies in many ways the intersection of race, class, and gender. And in stepping down and asking Alexis to replace me, I think it's that we each look individually and take affirmative action so that everyone has a voice in the table, particularly those voices that may not be powerful and more vulnerable. It's that level of personal commitment I want to make to this group and this community if I have the opportunity to serve you.
Thank you. Last question? Are we done? Okay, great. Okay, thank you for, you have 1 minute closing statement. Sorry, I'm keeping to the schedule. If you want, we'll start with Gabe.
So thank you for having me tonight. I wish there were more than 1 minute. These are hard questions.
Yeah.
I got a little nervous here because, wow. But anyway, I'm running for supervisor because I really feel Marin is facing a lot of urgent issues that cannot wait. We can avoid crisis if we act now. The housing and economic pressures that are driving people out of our county, the climate change, the disaster mitigations, the boom of senior citizens, drug addiction, etc. we can deal with them. I believe I'm the candidate who won't list the problems. I've worked very hard to try to work on all these issues and develop plans and policy. My leadership record is centrist and data-driven. My record of bringing people together is in 25 Marin IJ articles. I've worked hard to establish facts and put general interest over special interest. I've put a $1,000 donation limit on my campaign to really signal that I won't take special interests any more seriously than anyone else and will promote the public good. I thank you for your time and respectfully ask for your recommendation.
Thank you. Heather?
As I've spent time with residents over the last several months, I've heard over and over a frustration with transparency, accountability, and inclusion. While challenges like housing affordability, climate change, wildfire prevention and protection, homelessness, racial justice, equity, traffic, and feelings of disconnection exist, I see a vibrant future for Marin. In order to tackle the challenges ahead, we need to work collectively, listen to different perspectives, respect one another's opinions, and arrive at solutions that will genuinely address the issues. My door will always be open. I welcome collaboration and different perspectives. Community engagement has never been more important in Marin, and by tackling our issues as a community, we will be stronger for it. In 2017, I was honored to be awarded Marin Young Woman of the Year by MWPAC. And in 2018, I received your endorsement for a second term on the Kentfield School Board. I would be honored to earn your endorsement for District 2 Marin County Supervisor tonight. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, sure. Hi. My personal and world experiences drive my understanding. I'm proud to have the endorsements of Supervisor Katie Rice, Supervisor Moulton Peters, Mayor Kate of San Rafael, and Councilmember Rachel Kurtz. In many ways, Marin is a bubble. The world is changing, and we need to be able to have alliances with other counties to address the challenges that we're facing collectively and individually as both our cities and towns and unincorporated communities. I've done the work in San Anselmo and beyond, and I'm the most experienced in listening and providing solutions. It would be an honor to serve you in what may be a historic election here in Marin County. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
I'm also very proud to have endorsements from former Senator John Burton, former Supervisor Judy Arnold, former Sheriff Bob Doyle, Superintendent of Schools John Carroll, and from my area in Fairfax, Larry Bragman, Ford Green, and Frank Egger. I mean, for me, public service is about stewardship of our communities and environment, and the key word is we. What kind of communities do we want? How do we want to tackle the challenges reshaping our way of life? Do we have the courage and humility to shift direction when policy ideas are not working? A change in leadership is an opportunity for fresh thinking and renewed transparency. I believe everyone has the right to be heard and respected. Governing by consensus is about honoring the dignity of every individual. It is also about trust. Every time we reach a decision together, every time we set aside our differences and really listen to each other, we pave the way for more confidence and shared participation in the next decision. I did not enter this race because I see supervisor as the next step in my political career. I am running because I am fiercely optimistic about the turn that humanity is taking towards a more inventive, equitable, and environmentally intelligent future. I want this election to be the moment when we bend our collective creativity toward a new era of shared prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.